When the pressure is high and the energy low, that's when your business needs inspiration to change and to grow. It's also when true captains show up. Hi, I'm Mark Francis, and I'm the host of this podcast that invites industry leaders from all over the world to answer the question, who's your captain? When you need to motivate and to mobilize, to develop and enable your team. Whether you are new to being a leader or you aspire to be a captain, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Who's Your Captain? I'm your host, Mark Francis. Delighted to have Brian Dyer here. Brian, how are you doing?
Doing great. Good to speak to you, Mark. Ready to go.
Yeah, I'm excited because Brian, I'm excited to speak to you, Brian, because in the time we've spent together on a couple of conversations, there's something that makes you stand out. And you're president of your company, former COO, CFO of the business, but now president. And what makes you stand out from my perspective is that you're in the trenches with your team. You're a turnaround boss, so you help businesses really drive growth fast. And you're in the trenches with your customers as well. So you're a very hands-on leader. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, it's where I love to spend my time. So I hope that is a reflection of reality. I do find myself in the trenches. I'm naturally drawn to where the action is. As you mentioned that, one of the reasons why was, I worked on a desk job for so long and looked at numbers and thought I understood what was going on. And it wasn't until I went to where things were actually happening that I really started to learn that I had a lot to learn. And in the trenches, working with the team, learning from them, the amount of education and learning that I've had over the course of years of spending that time in the trenches has just been phenomenal. So yeah, I love it. I love working there. And then also on the customer side, actually finding out what they really need, finding new things that we can do, helping evolve the business that way. So absolutely.
And that's one of the things I'm going to ask you about straight away, because that you're a leader that makes things happen, and that's always got to be a good thing. One of the key questions I'm going to ask is, how do you then transfer that? This podcast is called Who's Your Captain? And you're clearly the captain, but how do you transfer that energy, that focus, that drive that you naturally have? What's your method of making the team around you as good as they can be?
Well, energy is, the energy you carry into your company and to your work is contagious, whichever way you bring it. If you are bringing negativity or if you're down, that's one of the easiest ways to bring people with you. The opposite is also true, and it's actually, it's probably you need it repeated more often, I think, than negativity is super contagious, but positivity is, if it's consistent, it is also contagious too. So when I say I'm working in the trenches, a lot of that is, it allows for that contagion. I have my own like personal processes that I go through where, how you spend your time. I'm very intentional about how I spend my time. On the way to work, for example, I'll listen to a podcast like yours or other information for about half the time on the way to work. The second half of my drive is in silence, and I'm thinking about application of something that I've learned. So when I show up to work, I usually have some idea of what I want to apply today. So I'll think about my team, the needs that we have, the areas where we're struggling, and I allow my mind to have just stillness to really contemplate how to best show up in those areas. And then when I get to work, I got to go there. That's immediately where I try and go, is to the area that I'm thinking of, and start working with those the people in those areas. And when you start working in those areas, it's really, it happens in every case. People around you start working with you, and they kind of they want to do And a lot of the times they know how to do what you're trying to do better than you. So
Hmm.
as long as you show up in those areas, they can really catch what you're trying to do, and you can hand the baton to them because they can usually run with it even better than you can. So that is one of the benefits of showing up in the trenches and working in them, is people around you and on your team. They're 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 likely more skilled in that area than you are, and can implement improvements in their areas even better than you can in your own head.
I like the sound of that. And when we first spoke, you talk about an idea that, or a principle that everyone in your business gets feedback. And am I right in saying you've got about 120 people in your business? Is that about
Yep,
right?
around
Really
120.
cool. So awesome. Everyone gets feedback. You said that. You said that's a principle, that's a key part of improvement in a job. Tell me a bit more.
Yeah, every leader, every supervisor, whoever has a direct report, they have a personal, um, they take it personal that the employees under their group know what they're doing right and know what they can improve upon. It's a system. Our HR group is very tied into it. They're following up with leaders who, haven't met with their employees. It's all tracked so that if there's any place in the company where an employee isn't getting feedback, that we make sure that they get it. It's a big part of the development of our team, is that feedback, because every person is going to be different, and each one of them is actually has different levels of hunger to improve. And so as long as we make sure everybody has these opportunities, you give them a chance to show you how hungry they are to develop and improve, and uh, be promoted and earn different accolades. And so by having a system like that, you can really kind of see the different kind of paths that people take, where people can advance very fast. Some people are a little bit slower, but they still have that opportunity. And again, it's contagious. So when somebody's kind of improving a lot of different things, getting more involved, other people see that they can as well, and others follow.
That's great. So the energy is being transferred across the team by doing that. I love that. And another idea you shared with me was this idea of a huddle. So tell me more about what a huddle is within Sterling ATM.
Yeah, so the huddles that we have in each of our teams, every team at the beginning and end of their day, they huddle with their team. So they all have boards. It's all, you know, people write their goals for the day. So we'll know what we need to achieve in each area. We'll know what the priorities are, and each person comes up with a personal goal that they have for that day. And so at the end of the day, before you leave for the day, we check in on whether or not that we achieved those goals. And if we didn't, it's actually, it's something in a culture to make it okay to not achieve a goal, and for the
Hmm.
team to know that's where our opportunities lie, is when we get disrupted, or we get interrupted or distracted from a goal for the day, because there's so many little hidden disruptions that happen in a company, especially when you have that many employees, that could be prevented only if they were made visible. So it's a way to make issues in the company visible for the support teams to really help on. And so as a part of that, it just leads to a big part of continuous improvement is team members who get disrupted from their goals can communicate it and they get help. And then there's a camaraderie built by the support groups. We have a process for tracking those issues and following up to actually improve that for the employee. You know, that that kind of a process has really led to like employees really knowing that their work matters, that if they have an issue, we actually care. There's something that we're going to try and do about it, and we're probably going to ask for their ideas on how to help them get it done. So as a part of that, they go into the lab with us. I think we have kind of a culture of like, when we come to work, it's not just our hands but our minds, and we're somewhat in a lab where we're trying different things, And we realize there's always a better way. So by realizing that, we're always trying to find that better way. Sometimes we go backwards a little bit when we try, but we learn from it. And by trying and trying and trying, and we have these huddles in every area throughout the company, we have an engagement that we've developed that, I find it unique. I haven't seen it in other companies.
I was going to
In
say
other,
that.
yeah,
I was going to say that, Brian. I've not seen that. I tell you where I've seen it in a much smaller scale, in a business where the team is huddled before they go out because they're street salespeople, and it's like
right.
you've got to get the energy up when it's cold out in Chicago,
Yep.
right? And so there's a huddle before the day. But what's different is there was no huddle at the end. It was like, everyone goes home. So there's a sporting connection here, isn't there? It's like the American football huddle where we're psyching each other up to deliver.
Yep.
And there's the end of the day huddle as well. So there's definitely a sporting angle to this huddle.
It's funny. Even that process was part of an experimentation, and we did find that not having that close of day huddle was drastically different in letting an issue roll into the next day. Right, then we have to rely on remembering it. A lot of people were just like, okay, let me remember what happened, but because you're catching it so fresh, you make sure you get the issues that happen, but you also, the
Mm-hmm.
level that gets communicated to you is much more thorough when it's that fresh, right? So it's like I had this challenge of the day, but it's just interesting how something small like that is just, instead of letting all that roll until the huddle the next morning, drastic difference in the engagement there. And for people, for the delay and people realizing that work mattered, right? It's immediate. At the end of the day, it's like, we care about this and we want to know now, instead of, you know, if you forget it overnight, then, we'll be okay the next morning. And so, yeah, I mean, you mentioned that, and that's how I've seen a lot of huddles. But it was something that we tried out, and it's worked. So that is one of the things that we've actually developed as a part of that engagement process.
That's great. And I'd like to talk to you about your business now because you are someone that helps businesses grow. And with Sterling ATM, you specialize in making ATMs look amazing and therefore be more effective for the organizations that have them. And you've pivoted. So you've thought, we've got expertise in this particular area, but we can move into a really very different area to grow the business in terms of trailers. Tell me about that. That's a big shift, right? From ATM machines to trailers. How
Yeah.
do you do that?
Yeah. So when I started at Sterling ATM, I started as their CFO, and in the industry, it's a lot of project driven work. So there would be a customer that had a big project and it had a bunch of work, but there would be a finality to it. So you'd get these waves of work, and then at different times of the year, it'd be really light. And so when you train up and you develop a lot of people, trying to manage those ebbs and flows, especially when it's physical product, right? We're manufacturing products. It's really hard to turn that dial up and down without losing people on your team. And so
Yeah.
we knew we had to try and find something else to try and do to supplement those lulls. And we had tried a few different things, and didn't stick, but we eventually did. Actually, my business partner, he was the president of Sterling ATM at the time. He was actually looking for a personal trailer, and he went around the country, couldn't find one that was made, and we're in manufacturing, and we talked about making one. So we made one. Uh, People loved it. We took it to a trade show. People loved it. COVID hit. Everybody in the world wanted to get out of their house and wanted a trailer. So they wanted outdoor products. And so we got this huge spike in demand. So we decided to, make these trailers. And,
Seize the opportunity.
yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
Carpe diem for sure. in that moment. And what's wild is these two different industries that we've in, they pair so well. So the banking industry and the projects, they actually spike when banks acquire each other, which happens when the economy's down. And then when the economy's up, it's a discretionary product. People buy, trailers, RVs, things like that. So they actually offset each other really well. So instead of training up and developing a whole bunch of people and then having to make hard decisions about who you need to let go to make sure that your ship stays afloat, you get to flex them, and then you get to cross train them, and they end up getting excited about other work. And not only that, but with these trailers, is we allow the employees to take them out with their families. And so it's not even just work, but it's also work that they're personally tied to, and they have pictures with their family of going out in these things that their fingerprints are on these products. And so it's made it even more exciting too, for people to not feel like they only know this one thing and they're not going to learn anything new. It's really opened up a broad range of skills that people can get cross trained in. There's opportunities in leadership for them to develop and advance. And so we're now running both of these companies simultaneously, and a lot of our employees are cross trained on both lines of business.
Sounds really exciting. How do you brand that? How do because you're Sterling ATM, it's the same business team doing the work. Is it a totally different brand? Is it a subsection? How do you do that? How do you message?
Well, so we set it up as
two arms?
yeah, we set it up as a separate company, but a line of business to Sterling ATM. So
Oh yeah.
the trailers are actually purchased by Bean Trailer, and then they're sold to the end users. So everybody's employed in Sterling ATM, and it's a line of business that we flex to kind of internally.
Yeah, I love the entrepreneurial spirit in that whole story. What's as the president of the business now, and that's the umbrella business, including the camping. What's your vision now? What's the big vision for the business going forward?
Well, we started with these teardrop trailers. If you look them up, there you've probably seen them going around the road. They're teardrop in shape, and as we learned to develop these trailers, we had customers that wanted a little bit bigger ones. We had customers that wanted a little bit smaller ones. And so we have developed different products. So we actually have a bigger trailer that you can stand up in, that is receiving a lot of pre-orders for. So we've just started rolling those off the line. We have a smaller trailer that we've made that's really off-road, for really overland. The overland industry really was craving it, and immediately attached to it, where you can take a dirt bike out camping with you. So we've expanded ourselves into that market. And then on the ATM side, we just went to a trade show where we released two brand new products the industry hadn't seen. One's a 360 security barrier. So there's been actually a lot of theft of ATMs in the banking industry. And we designed a product that fully encloses the ATM, so it can't be chain and hook and chain.
Can't be removed at all.
Yeah. There's been a lot of theft that way. So it's not possible to even get to the ATM. So we designed a product for that, and then also like a digital product. So the signages can be digital, and you can change and make it, advertisements incorporated into the products. So it's brand new to the industry. We have patents on both. So it's exciting time, and our customers, it's good when our customers are banging on our door saying, when can we get it? When can we get it? So we are in that situation where we've done a decent job developing new products, and getting customers excited about, the newest and latest.
Fantastic. And is that a specialist team? Is that like specialist research and development team for designing new? Do you have that, or does it come when the idea comes? You say, let's get the design team together.
So this is where, I mean, this comes from our actual huddle process. Of part of the board is, we identify better ways to do things. So we'll identify people outside our industry that have done something kind of unique or clever, and see if there's a different way to incorporate it. So these are actually in-house employees' ideas. Um, where it's like, well, we haven't done this in the past. Why haven't we done this? And a lot of it's because we haven't tried to. And so we I can't compliment our team enough. I just feel very fortunate to work with people that I do, because as a part of having some of these engagement processes, you know, it's not just one person who's thinking about how to improve the business or what we can do next. We actually have a lot of ideas that are happening internally, and we meet on them, we vet them, and most importantly, in some way, shape, or form, we're always trying to do something. So there's not really a point in time where we're not trying and exploring to do something new. And the majority of those things don't work. I mean, that's the reality, is the majority don't. They don't attach, they don't make financial sense, they don't do things. And so um sometimes it's, and then you learn from that and you try again. But these are, these products were employees on the team's ideas that really landed with our customers and took off. So our fingerprints of our team are all over these ideas.
It's really amazing, honestly, that, because the huddle conceptually, you go, yeah, what a nice idea. But actually, it's hugely connected to everything you do in your business, not just good feedback for the team and team building, but actually business building huddles.
It's massive.
So good.
I try and attend as many of the huddles as I can. And I just smile when I attend these huddles, because I see employees, I see employees that have issues, and the way they communicate them and the process that they put them into, I know for sure that it's going to end up making us better. And it's, and I'm not leading it at this point, right? The team members, the other leaders in the company are. And, that's what's so great, is like when you don't have to be the person who initiates all these things that you find important, where they've connected enough for the team to do them consistently. What's going to happen. I know what time every one of these meetings are going to have. Everybody knows they're going to be had. We know our work matters. We know we're going to communicate issues, and we're going to get better today than we were yesterday, and tomorrow better than we were today. And there's just something about, I underplay the work that it took to get to that point, because there's so many different things that we tried that failed, that that's why I smile so big. I was like, wow, this is actually amazing. This is not easy to do. This is way easier said than done. And props to the team for having a hand in finding the ways to make it work.
Yeah, one thing that triggers with me, Brian, that just really works. If I was a member of your team, that one of the 120, whatever role I'm in, but I am in a huddle, there's no question that the momentum that's created means I go home and I think, what could we do better, right? So suddenly everyone is an innovator in some way, because they feel the energy and they want to be part of that. So I'd be coming up with ideas. And then the huddle decides, is it too risky? Is it going to get a return on investment? But my idea is valued, so I might as well find that idea. So I've got a real slice of ownership in the business as it grows. I think it's genius. I really do. And actually, I think it might be your next book, because it's so different. As you say, it's probably unique. The way you describe it, it's probably unique, and it could be your next book, could be, right? So I'm going to pivot to your first book, and it's just the concept that you put in this that it really resonates with me, and it's the concept that leadership you can describe as certain animals or beasts, and that there are four main elements of that. I'd love to talk about that, because I do a lot of work in sports psychology. I've worked a little bit in American football and taken the ideas from American football and I know you were a player yourself, and put it into the teams that I work in, not least state of mind. And so the four beasts you talk about in your book is about a state of mind and then how you execute it. So I'd love you to headline. I know what the beasts are. I've read your book. But tell me about the beasts and how they bring to life excellence in leadership.
Yeah, these are really these four different beasts and the traits that I found that that I find meaning in have really in combination led to an incredible amount of improvement in myself and in my team. The first beast was one that was probably the first one I had to learn, and it's the lion, and it represents owning your pride. So like taking full ownership of the issues, of the challenges, of the success, and your role in them. And I don't know when it happens for everybody, but I think everybody can relate to a point in time in their past where they blamed others. They found it easy to point out issues in other people's areas. They focused on what other people were doing without finding a way for whatever issue is going on to be your issue and for you to lead the solution on. And with that kind of mindset, the other beasts kind of relate to that, but that's kind of the overarching one that leads to some of the others. And the other one, so the other ones are, the next one is, once you own your world, the great horned owl is the next one. And so
this is wisdom, isn't it? This is using this, isn't it?
There is an aspect around the wisdom, but a lot of it is to the ability to see in the dark. So it's a predator that finds things that are hidden to the normal eye. And so it's about dilating your eyes to find that thing that needs to improve. So once you have the issue, it's like now you have to dilate your eyes. You have to go into it. That's where I say go to the trenches, right? That's part of my dilation, is I have to find this hidden solution, right? There's something that isn't understood. If it was easy to see, I think it would just fix itself. So it takes focus to try and find those issues, and that's a process, to really take that serious of like, there's something here, just to be open to the idea that there's something here that I don't see clearly, and search for it. And there will be something that you can find that, is new information that'll help you in leading the team and solving problems in your company. The next beast is the cheetah. So it's really a resemblance of
speed, right?
Speed to action. I think it's the true differentiator, the amount of time that it takes for somebody to take action. I've worked with a lot of people. I was one, at times I still slip into this where I'll listen to a podcast and it's super motivating, and you move on to the next motivating thing. You read the next book, you listen to the next episode, without doing anything about what you're motivated about. And there's something that we miss there, where it's like, I think of something, I know I can improve in this way, and for some reason I don't take an action to initiate it. And I'm talking about, it can be a super small baby step of action, but just something. Do something, reach out and contact somebody. Start working on it, something very small. I think it truly is the differentiator in someone who finds success, is their speed to action from when they know what needs to be done and the speed of which they do it. And then the fourth beast is the honey badger. There's a lot of videos out there about the honey badger. But it is the most resilient animal that I've seen. There's so many videos of it getting attacked by lions, by wolves, by all kinds of
Hunkers
creatures,
down, doesn't it?
and
Hunkers down says, I'm not going down here.
it's unfazed. It is
Yeah.
unfazed by fear, by challenges, by attacks, and just to carry that. Um, carry that with you. I've heard people say different ways where it's like something happens bad. It's just like Roger that, or, um, and as a simple solution, right? Like this happened. Well, what am I going to do about it? And to not let anything phase you, I think you can develop a lot of grit if you decide to, and just realizing, and 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 I often think about, like, I mentally think about these animals, and it actually does help me initiate some of those modes where it's like, if I can't see what needs to happen here, right, I'll just think of the allies and it'll help me find it. If there's something, if I'm struggling with like taking that baby step, I'll just be like, okay, remember the cheetah, speed to action. I got to find something. The plans get disrupted and it gets a little frustrated. I just go honey badger, and I can think about that, and it can help me just kind of move through that to something productive in response instead of letting it discourage you. You can find productive ways to respond to things that happen.
Yeah, this is great because it does remind me as a sports coach of what I learned in American football about playoffs. When the teams get into playoffs, it's life and death. In the league season, you can win a few and still make a wild card. But when you get to the knockout stages and the divisional championships, you got to win. It's win or lose, right? And
Yeah.
the two states of mind that I learned, and this was from the 49ers coach. He said when we go into playoffs, it's lion and dog. So it's very similar to yours in one sense. He said the lion is confidence in the pride, confidence in yourself, put best foot forward, strong, bold, obvious, right? And dog. And a dog will rather die than give you its bone. So you're going to fight and scrap for everything you can possibly get. And
Yeah.
you choose one of two of those in the moment. So you're playing a playoff game, win or lose. And are you being bold and strong and courageous like a lion, or are you fighting like a rabid dog? And those are your two states. And if you bring those to playoffs, instead of when in the league losing wasn't such a bad thing, now losing is life and death mentally, that's the key. And I got that from your four states. I got that brilliantly, actually. Because as you described it, Brian, I was seeing the films, right? We've all seen brilliant documentaries of animals, of the owl getting really focused before it flies down and gets its kill. So
Right.
brilliant storytelling by you. Really, really cool. And all of your team, the whole of the business knows those states, because they are, for me, they're states of mind that then become actions.
I've
Or is it
I've
your
shared
leaders?
those
Is it
with
just your
different.
leaders?
Yeah, I've shared those with different leaders. I haven't had that company wide kind of incorporated into what we do. Um, uh, we've like part of those for me. They're similar to the. It's almost like the Velcro. Um, what I found even with these huddle processes is like, because those things connect to me, and they may connect to a lot of people, but I do find it very helpful for the Velcro to be more thoroughly connected when it's when it's the team's idea, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
there are
well, which is the huddle, right?
yeah. So some of these are more like, we speak about, complete ownership, speed to action, find the problem. We got to hunt for it, hunt for the problem, and then resilience. We speak to these, but I haven't used those idols mostly because I wasn't sure if the Velcro would be mine, like attached with me or theirs. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm still allowing that to kind of become the teams, right? It's important to me for the team to be connected to the symbols or the words or the ways of operating. So that is a good question, though.
I hear that because it's for you, isn't it? I remember
Yeah.
when you told me when we first met, you talked about how you formulated them. And it was in those moments of silence in the morning when you were doing a journal, right? And you were reflecting on life as a single parent of 3 kids, my goodness me, all at that time before teenage years. So a huge life commitment to bring up a family and run businesses. So it's like head full stuff. And so your way of managing that was journal it, wasn't it? It was write a journal and say, this is how I feel. And so this came from that, didn't it? This idea of what leadership looks like came from that.
Yeah, it did. It absolutely came from that. I, when I had started the company, I had recently become a full-time dad at the same time to 3 kids, a 10, 8, and 6-year-old. And so for all those props to all the parents out there who, flank the parenting of children. It's quite the responsibility. And so I had that combined with starting a new business and being the CFO and COO of another company at the time. And I woke up many days in my work clothes from the previous day. Doing bedtime in my work clothes, just completely exhausted, not being able to find time. And so I had to find a little bit of stillness for my mind to have a little bit of space to think. And so I started a process of waking up 1 minute earlier each morning. I was like, I tried a half hour and it was too much. I was too tired. And so I started with 1 minute, and it was pretty crazy how far I got that way. I still wake up really early, and I would sit in silence, and I would just allow my mind. I'd go through that kind of owl process. I didn't even have that process at the time, but that was what I did. And I was journaling. I was like, what did I learn the previous day? What do I need to do today? And it was, in a strange way, a self-huddle, of like what I intended to do today, and then like checking in to see if it did, and then just having a learning process. And at the end of a couple of years, I looked at my journal, and I had seen like all these lessons that I had learned for myself. And then I did try and like put them into some kind of structure, and that's where the 4 B's did come from.
Yeah, it's really cool, because what I'm getting is such a great insight into a leader who has developed yourself. You've developed yourself significantly. And how did you do that? There's a couple of real tips that you've said a couple of times, and I'm going to repeat them back. Silence. Just, in your busy day, both at home with the kids, but also at work, find time to not have to do anything. So it's a gap. It's a gap in your day where you don't do anything. You just sit in silence and let the brain do its thing.
Absolutely.
Including regenerate, right? Including regenerate, but also come up with the idea. I love this point about the owl really focusing in, because part of the owl is to be visionary, but it's then when you have got that clear long-term perspective, it's what is the most important target right now? I love that duality of big vision, but also real focus, like laser focus on what I now need to do in order to realize it. It's very, very cool.
Right.
So if someone was starting as a CEO or a president, head of a business like yours, what tips would you give them? So, I mean, we've heard so many already, by the way. There's some amazing ideas. But genuinely, someone sat in front of you and said, I've just become the boss of business X. What are the tips you'd say to start off? What would you recommend they do right at the start?
Oh, you got to get with your team as quick as you can. You need to meet with as many people as you reasonably can. Start with the leaders immediately closest to you that you'll be working with. It is really insane to think of, as a business grows, the windows of your business that are only seen by one person, because the team is a collaborative group, and so there's a lot of assignment. So there's a lot of people that are doing one certain thing that nobody else is doing, and they have eyes that will see things that no one else will. And so, in a way, you really have to try and get the picture of what's going on in your company. And the way to do that that I would suggest is to meet with your team and to ask them what they see, right? What do you see in our company? Right? What do we do well? Similar to that one-on-one process is like, what are we doing well? Right? What do we really struggle with? And I think as you meet with your team, you'll start to get this, almost like a 360-degree view of maybe the company and the things that you're doing well and the challenges that you have. And as you meet with the different groups of people in your company, you're going to get a diverse a lot of diversity in answers. And if there's incongruencies there, you can kind of further research what's going on if there's different stories or things that don't quite line up. But I think it's almost like that process of like what you're talking about with the owl is like, get the big picture, right, of what's going on, and then even using that dilation, right, just like, okay, well,
Yep.
it sounds like our challenge is this. Um and I would get the ideas of your team. I feel like I've had a lot of ideas, but they're it's super small in number to the ideas that have come from my team. And so I think getting their ideas will get you a good start as they're close to the work on things we could do to improve and ways that we could tackle some of the challenges that we have. And I think it's very important for the team to work together cross departmentally. I try not to do too many things where it's just me and one other person that are working on the solution. Would like to have people from a different group and even an outside perspective of maybe a group that's close to but not in it, involved in the solutions. I think they can point out blind spots. Finding your blind spots. I mean, really, that process is so critical, and people will help you if they know you're looking for them and that it's okay to point them out.
What I'm hearing, and this is what really struck me as I was listening, Brian, is the huge difference from what great leadership is in the 2020s as opposed to the 1990s. Because in the 1990s, early 2000s, people thought leadership was a really smart person making all the decisions and telling people what to do, and you trust and like them, so you do it. And that's very old school, actually. And what you describe is new school, which is smart, isn't it? It's huddle mentality. It's we are going to use the team to assess the business, to come up with the blind spots, the problems, the issues, and the opportunities, and then in a huddle, come up with the solutions. And that's a fundamental shift of leadership mentality from one person drives things to we all own and drive this business. It's a massive, massive change.
It's pretty fascinating.
If you buy it,
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I it makes you really comfortable, realizing you don't know everything. It's to get comfortable with that process of really just being like, I don't have all the answers, so I need help, and almost acting in that way of a little bit of humility, right? Where you're showing up of like, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here. I'm here to be a part of trying to figure out the solutions. I'm not coming with the solution. I'm here to help with it.
I think so. But you then, once you've listened, there are moments when it's vital that you become the only voice, because any group needs a clear leader at times. And so you elevate and you become the lion, right? You go, okay, here's my decision. I've listened. I think it's amazing. Thanks for all the options. And we're going to choose option C. And I need you to do this, this, and this. So clear, strong direction, explicit, go. And right, be cheetahs now, deliver.
Yeah.
And so that's
absolutely.
also, you have to transition out of collaborative into clear direction. Not often. Not often,
Yeah.
but people need to feel that my leader has the strength of character to just tell me what to do sometimes, when appropriate. When appropriate.
Absolutely. And part of that decisiveness and just like the clarity of ownership on those issues can be delegation as well. It can be, you know, hey, Mark, do you think you can identify this, or you can do this as you come up with the solution? So a lot of it can't even be delegation. It's like, Mark, can you try and do this today, right? And then at the end of the day, we'll see what happened and see what you learned, or whatnot. So because a lot of the times there's actually so many of these things that you have to involve more than yourself. But part of that too, right? Like you're saying, it is clarity. You do have to step in and decide on a course of action. Some of that course of action can be utilizing the team and assigning single point
And delegating. Yeah.
single point delegation, where it's like, I'm going to give this to you. At the end of the day, I'm going to check in on this, and we're going to kind of discuss, but work with this team or whatnot, so that you can kind of by proxy, have the team involved and learning along the way.
Fabulous. I've got one big last question, and you can take it either as president, as Brian Dyer, or for the business Sterling ATM. Okay. And the question is, what is the big next? Because you're such a dynamic company and open to opportunities and new ways. What for you is the big next, Brian?
The big next is the territory I'm dilated on right now, and that's the sales expansion part of our business. With some of these products that we've developed, it's really opened our eyes on how capable we are and how much more we can do. And as the CFO, I was over operations. And then becoming president, I recently, took over the sales leadership. And so on the sales side, it's been really kind of the ladder of the groups to kind of go through some of these processes. And it's really exciting to think about these unexplored avenues, these ideas that we've had that we haven't tried. It's really, it's like you've learned this process and you've seen how much it's done. And then just to have like a complete, untouched field that, has opportunities that this hasn't been applied to. And, we have people that have been in those areas kind of watching us grow and develop, and they're excited as we've started some of these. It's what's led to these new products that we've implemented. That's just the beginning. I hope in a year from now there will be something that we're doing that we're not today, and it's strange to not know what that's going to be, but to know the processes well enough to know that we're going to find it some way, shape, or form. And so on the sales side, we're going to be getting involved in much different things than we have historically, and that's going to lead to a lot of growth and opportunity for our team.
That's fantastic. And I saw you when you were talking, you were rubbing your hands. That's just excitement, right? I'm not certain what it is, but I know it's something different and new, and that it'll be amazing. And I trust the process. It's going to work, right?
Yeah,
that's amazing. I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Brian. It's been truly inspirational, because you paint a picture when you share your stories that it's easy to step into, be that the huddle or the beasts or any element of an amazing business that you run. So a huge thank you to you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Mark. I appreciate the interest and the dialogue. It's been great to meet with you and get to know you as well.
Thank you.